Today on Treated, I get to sit down with someone I've admired for years, Biet Simkin. Biet is often called the David Bowie of meditation because she fuses spirituality with art, music, and raw storytelling in a way that makes awakening feel less like a yoga retreat and more like real life. She's taken her own journey through loss, addiction, and resilience and turned it into a modern spiritual practice that is both grounded and electrifying. When I first took an online course and practiced her style of breath work, I said to myself, I need to know this woman. And here we are together today at my home studio in Mill Valley, California. I love Biet because she is unapologetically human. She's not about perfection or bypassing, but she's about bringing meditation and presence into the mess and the beauty of everyday life. I wanted her on Treated because she embodies what we talk about here: recovery, repair, and the possibility of transformation. Not in spite of what breaks us, but because of it. Let's dive in. Biet, I just want to dive deep with you. I'm so excited to do that together. I want to start with, who are you? What should people know about you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm someone who used to think I was an alien on this planet.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Why did you think that?
Because I am so emotional and so creative. So that makes me want to die some of the time. And so I thought anyone who wants to die that much in such a beautiful world, right? And is confronted with the reality of it all, and is so alive and so smart and so energized and so creative, and yet can't quite put the pieces together on a planet like this. I thought I didn't belong here. And who I am today is someone who figured out how to not just exist on this strange planet, but how to thrive here.
That's so good. So this sense of being an alien, is that also related to sensitivity?
For me, it was, yeah, super sensitive. And I thought that made me special and better than everyone.
It does make you special.
Yeah.
It makes you see things in the culture before other people.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you done the high sensitivity person test?
I'm not sure if I have. I've done like a lot of the different personality, the INT.
Oh, yes,
one,
yes,
yeah?
yes.
Is that similar or different?
It's different. It's more about sensitivity to your environment.
Okay.
It was developed by a psychologist, Elaine Aron.
Huh.
And I didn't learn until my 50s that I'm highly sensitive. I just ran around overstimulated so much of the time and not knowing like why I was so much compared to other people. So it was a big deal to learn that about myself. But it sounds like you knew this about yourself early on.
I did. I didn't have a word for it. I mean, the words I was taught were artist, creative. And we have, as a society, a lot of stories about what that means, right? So I'm incompetent, incapable of reality, of dealing with reality. Reality is too much for me, right? So I had a lot of stories I had to really break to be functioning on a planet like this, where it's not like everybody's like, great, you're a creative? Don't worry, you can just come into work at 2 p.m. or high school. Like I would arrive at high school, I'd like show up at like 11. And my principal was always like standing there being like, why'd you even bother coming? And I was like, aren't you glad I came at all? Like, what are you talking about? You know?
This is good. And we did, in fact, start our podcast at 2:00 today.
Right.
I mean, we needed to adapt.
We did. We texted each other. We were like, how's 2 p.m.? Both of us were like, amazing.
So I want to, when I first got a sense of you, it was in a commune course that you were teaching.
Yes.
Which was ostensibly about breath work, but it was about so much more than that.
Yes.
And I've learned about some of these experiences you've had of deep, deep grief. So I feel like I want to begin there and also pick up this arc that you described of living in this world as a highly sensitive person, as someone who takes on a lot of what the culture is putting out to us, I want to start with, what's been the most painful experience of your life?
Fun.
Why not just dive in?
Yeah,
I feel
just
like
like
I can do that with you.
You can, absolutely. Because to me, actually, they're very similar, right? The most painful and the most pleasurable. But I would say, ironically, so my whole family died while I was growing up. And that all culminated also in my first baby dying of sudden infant death and being brought dead into my arms. And so one would think that the baby moment was the worst. And I think a lot of people think that. But the truth is that my mom died when I was almost 6, the same age that my daughter is today, like literally the same age that she is right at this moment as we sit here together. And nothing, not the death of my father, not the house burning down, not the death of my baby, not, God, I mean, the endless death of every single relative while I was growing up and every funeral I attended. Nothing quite gets me like the death of my mother at that age. To lose her, it broke me. And I diminished it also. Like my whole life, I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I wore a leather jacket. You know me. I like leather jackets.
Yes. And pantsuits.
What?
And great hats. Pantsuits and great hats.
Exactly. That's my vibe. I'm all about great hats and I'm strong, right? That was like what I was trying to say. But really it broke me. And I can still I can cry now on a dime just thinking about my mother being gone. And that the fact that I've lived a life with no mother since then, right? Because it starts very young, but that it's like I still don't have a mother. It's not like she gets to come back and it's like, oh, that was cute. That was funny. Ha ha. Now she's back. No, she's gone.
Losing your mother at 6 shaped you.
Yes.
In some really critical ways, I would imagine. How did it shape you?
It taught me that people die out of nowhere. She was 39 years old. She got pancreatic cancer and she just dropped dead within 6 months. And to watch someone go from perfectly healthy to dead at such a quick rate at such a young age, what I learned was life was very, 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 very fragile. So you don't want to save money. You don't want to try to build anything because anything can be destroyed at any minute. And you want your life to be present moment, like as much pleasure as you can get right now, because it really could end at any minute. That is how it shaped me originally. Today, I have turned that around to live the life that I live today. Because while that was exceptional and it created a very exceptional life, because I do believe in pleasure and I do believe in making things, and I believe in urgency, and all those things are great tools. They weren't sustainable tools for building a life because I was always on edge thinking that I could die at any minute, which makes me hypervigilant and hyperventilating and stressed and afraid and able to go into fight or flight quite easily,
So this feels like a really important piece to dwell for a moment. So fight or flight, losing your mother so young.
Yeah.
In the context of a lot of other grief as well, growing up, but focusing on that experience with your mother. So do you have the sense of being in fight or flight when you were a child? Or is it more as you've been older that you have noticed kind of these patterns?
I didn't know what fight or flight was. I wasn't I just knew that I was freaking the fuck out. And I went on a long journey once I got sober, returning to my father's work. And my father was a spiritual teacher. He was an awakened shaman. So it wasn't like I was a newbie to these practices. The thing that I think is different about what I'm bringing to the world is that specific combination, right? Because a lot of us have been introduced to somatic practices, to tapping, to breath work. And how much has it done for all of us? In many cases, many people are still struggling with some of the stuff okay, you can go run off and tap, but are you actually building the life of your dreams? Are you actually finding the partner of your dreams? Are you actually creating children and having functional relationships with them where you're not worrying and terrorizing them with your worry? And I think it comes back to this creation concept, right? Like, I am the creator of my life. So if I'm creating it from a place of I'm freaked the fuck out and I could lose it at any minute, then my life is going to look like that. And actually, I'm not saying that I'm to blame for my first daughter's death, but on some level, when my childhood was so filled with death and so interwoven with chaos, that I do believe that I was slated to live a life of so much more chaos. Because when we don't put our foot down and say, I'm putting the brakes on this, I get that I've been handed this dose. Now I'm going to ask the question of, how can I create my future? Knowing that I have the agency and the authority to do so, because I have a connection with a higher power and a relationship with that higher power that doesn't have me as a victim, as being like, oh, well, that's just what happens to people who, lose people. More people die. Oh, big surprise, right?
This is really beautiful. It's, I'm hearing sovereignty. I'm hearing the word you used, agency. And I wonder, for people who are listening to us and imagining, maybe they had a parent who died when they were a child, or they've got some other experience of trauma like you did. You've been able to architect this arc from that fight, flight, freeze that you had around age 6 to the woman that you are today. A woman who does such important work. You've got this incredible book, Don't Just Sit There. You've got this thriving online community. You're a spectacular meditation teacher. I want to go deeper into that because what you do feels so different than any other meditation I've done in my life. So can you tell us about, how did you find your way to that agency and sovereignty from the trauma? And how do you help others do that?
It comes down to this. You have to be really honest. And I am really good at being full of shit. And I'm a great storyteller. And the kinds of stories that I used to tell myself scared the living bejesus out of me. And so what I had to do was realize, okay, I'm really good at telling stories. So if I'm really good at telling stories, why don't I start telling stories that are functional, that are useful for my life, and stop weaponizing information, right? So if I saw something in the news, I would weaponize it towards myself. If I saw climate change news, I would weaponize it towards myself.
What do you mean by that? I'm curious, what does it sound like? Maybe the story you were telling yourself that was weaponized.
You're going to die. You're going to die. And any minute, you're going to fucking die. You need to worry. You need to stop everything you're doing and worry. And, and here's the other thing. It's in what way is worrying about climate change going to be good for my ROI, right? If I'm running a business, if I'm an entrepreneur, how is that going to be of service to that business? Or if I'm a songwriter, which I am, I make music, I score these huge events all over the world with my music. How is me stopping everything I'm doing to worry about war somewhere 3,000 miles from me going to serve the music that I'm writing? Unless I'm actually writing about the war or writing about climate change, in which case, great, then it's inspirational. But generally speaking, my song lyrics weren't about wars, weren't about cancer, which was one of my favorites too. I love cancer.
What does that mean?
It means as soon as I heard the word cancer, I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to die. If I was even near someone that had it, I was like, I'm going to get it. It's contagious. I'm going to die, because my mom just dropped dead of cancer. So I was like, I'm in danger. I'm in danger, constantly in danger. And it's how is this serving the greater mission of my life? It's not. And I had to come to a point where I was like, wait a minute, what if I get to decide when I die? And what if I get to decide how hot I am, and how long I get to be hot, and how much great sex I get to have, and how much money I get to make, and what kind of houses I get to buy, and what kind of weddings I get to have for my daughters, and that I get to see them get married because I'm old enough to do so and healthy, and I get to dance at their wedding. Because the way that I had it set up before was well, good thing you had some kids. Maybe you'll get a couple years before you drop fucking dead, and never get to see them again and ruin their entire life with your early onset, whatever the fuck, you know? And so like anytime I read news, I was like, see, it's all happening. It's coming, you know? So I had to change the script. And this is what I help people do today. I help them change the script.
That's beautiful. How do you do that?
Well, I wake them the fuck up by being very straight. I've always been very shocking. People have said that my methods are very shocking. I'm sure you can attest to that, having intermingled with my commune course, right? I don't fuck around.
No.
I curse. I'm straight to the point. And I think what also has changed is on my journey, I was originally just very interested in saving my life. I was interested in not being poor anymore. I was interested in not dating schmucks anymore. I was interested in feeling good, looking good, being skinny, having great clothes, traveling the world, and being recognized. Totally egoic, right? Like being recognized for how great I am. And I accomplished all those things. And I was like, look at me, I'm amazing. And then I went around being amazing. And I was on stages in front of thousands of people being amazing. And I was like, something's missing. Like something is wrong with this paradigm. Like me being amazing just feels really boring to me. And I kept going home and feeling less than and feeling afraid and feeling like I wanted some pizza. And I just was like blotting away the feeling. I was like, why do I still feel this loneliness? Why do I still feel this? This isn't what I came to this planet to do. And what clicked in for me was my being great in the face of all the poverty and death and horror that I had gone through, and having risen from the ashes and being really funny wasn't the point of the whole thing. The point of the whole thing was that I had done certain things to make that possible. And how was I going to now translate all that to help millions of people? And so I painstakingly sat and figured out exactly what steps I took, and figured out what order those steps need to be taken, and figured out what full of shitness specifically was keeping me from being useful to the world and actually having a great, fully great life. Not like 80% great, because I'm sure a lot of viewers are watching this and they're like, my life is great. I already look good, right? I'm wearing skinny jeans, like everything. I have the boyfriend. What you got? What you got? What you got? And it's like, what I got is, how about that last 20%? When you look at someone like Dolly Parton, you look at someone like, I don't know, Christopher Walken. You look at someone like Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin. These are our heroes, right? David Bowie. What is different about them and whoever's listening to this right now? There is a difference. And that is what I teach, is what is that difference? Mm-hmm. What stops someone at 80%? It's like, this is good enough. This is good as it's going to get because I'm a fucking mess. And I have PTSD. So I guess it's just as good as it's going to get. But newsflash, all those people had PTSD. Maya Angelou didn't wake up in some like privileged life. She had been fucked up before she became the inspiration that we all know her to be.
Fascinating. Are you saying that PTSD is part of the path?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So tell me more about that, because I feel like, I mean, this is pretty edgy and I love getting edgy with you.
Yeah.
There's a way that I feel like my trauma was for me.
Yes.
It sensitized me and allows me to be of service to other people who are suffering the way that I used to suffer.
Amen.
As a result of my trauma. And I really love this 80%. And what's it going to take for you to be fully expressed, to be the 100 or plus 100+%?
Mm-hmm. And
it feels like, well, I want to know, how do you do that? So you've got a particular method. You teach it.
Yes.
In your communities.
Yes. 1-to-1 and inside my communities. People can take on these methods and they can transform their lives and actually be the full vision of their life, the full expressed vision of their lives.
Can you give us like a little sense of maybe where you start? So maybe someone's listening to us right now.
Yep.
And they're at the 80%. You know, they're pretty happy with their career.
Yep.
They're happy enough with the person they chose to marry or their, primary relationship. And as you talk about the 80%, they're maybe saying to themselves, oh, maybe I'm at 80%. Maybe I'm not fully expressed. Where do I start? Like, how do we create that curiosity and start that service?
I believe it starts with trust, a real trust. I think a lot of us have, if we've gotten to 80%, that means that we had to have discovered some kind of higher power to lean on. Because to get to 80%, you had to have leaned on something. Now, most of us, though, are leaning on a higher power that kind of sucks.
Say more.
Well, the higher power that we invent is usually vindictive, vengeful, testing us, doing things to harm us, causing problems in our lives. And I believe that if we don't take responsibility for the fact that we are the creators of our entire life and trust that our higher power isn't an idiot that is intentionally harming us, how can we possibly move forward? If I don't trust my higher power, then why wouldn't I believe that tomorrow my higher power might think it's a great idea to give me cancer and kill me very quickly? What that says to me is that I have a higher power who blows. Doesn't have my best interest in mind, right? And the way that I know that I have a shitty higher power, all I got to do is look back at my life. What kind of a higher power would kill my baby? What kind of a higher power would kill a kid's mom when they're 6 years old and they have no money and they're an immigrant in a new country that they've never lived in? What kind of higher power would do that? And I had to really have a reckoning that I hadn't forgiven my higher power. Not really. I spoke a big game because I believe in quantum. I understand conceptually that God did this in my favor. Even right after my mom died, I turned to my dad because I'm Mr. Miyagi. And I said, she did this for us at the age of 7. And he said, you're wiser than your years. You know what I mean? Shit you say. But what did I really believe? I believe that God hates me and that God loves lucky people. And then I looked out in the world and I saw who those lucky people were. And every one of your listeners has their own special lucky person that they look to on the internet, that they look to in films, that they look to in the media. And they say, that's what luck looks like. And if God loved me, that's what I would have. So why don't I have that? And then they did the math. And the reason is because God doesn't love them. And because God is evil and a fucked up piece of shit who's just trying to hurt them. So I had to really get right. I had to really reconstruct a God that really was there for me all along. And I had to get that me and God are co-pilots and that we killed my mother and that we killed my baby and that we created all that poverty and the roaches and the mice. And we created all this PTSD, that we weren't idiots. And then I had to ask myself, why? Why would I do that? And as soon as I started asking why, instead of being mad about it, so many answers came to me, creative answers. So the first question was why? And the second question was, okay, well then what's the difference between me and that lucky person? Why are they thriving and I'm not? By the way, I was at 80% when I asked these questions. But I'm an angry bitch and I want it all. I'm not satisfied with 80%. And I bet you that your listeners aren't. And I bet you aren't. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. 80% is not enough.
Yes.
And so I was like, show me the money, like that scene from Jerry Maguire. Show me the fucking money. And God is good. As soon as you start asking the right questions, God is like ChatGPT. Like if you ask the right questions, God will give you much better answers. So if I stopped asking, why me? Why'd you do this to me? And I started asking, why'd I do this? Why would I create a world? Why would I create a life like this? Why would I create these circumstances? Why would I give myself a big nose? Why would I give myself brown hair? Why would I make me short? And the universe is like, I got some answers for you. And then it's like, well, how do I get to that? How do I get to become like the lucky person? And a lot of answers came. Truth. And truth hurts. It's what it does is you're actually asking universe, God, source, I'm ready. Change me.
You started this particular thread, Biet, with trust. Can you layer in trust? How does trust relate to this relational conversation with higher power?
I think the key to trust is understanding that I am responsible, right? So if there's something wrong with my methods, if there's something wrong with my application of my methods, okay, I'm a master at breath work. I founded the most incredible breath work system ever known, right? Okay, great. I'm friends with a lot of interesting people. I travel the world. I have a best-selling book. Okay, great. Let's look at the liabilities. I'm a little lazy, right? Okay. I have some weird scheduling stuff. I go to bed at 2 a.m. I stay up. I literally work in my sauna from like 1 to 2 in the morning. My husband's like, maybe you have a functional health issue. He's like, you probably just need some supplements. And I'm like, I get my best work done at the gym. I'll go to the gym, which is a block from my house. So it's not like a big work to do, but I go to the gym, a block from my house. And then I stay at the gym for 3 hours. And this is what I do. I do strength training. And every time a genius idea comes to me, I stop everything I'm doing. I write content. I write pieces for my new book. I, email my assistant. I do all kinds of stuff. And then I go back, then I do cardio. Like this goes on. And I say to my husband, well, I just have the most energy when I'm at the gym. He's like, this sounds like a functional health issue and not like, you know what I mean? So what's to say these are my liabilities, right? And I'm very honest. I can be long-winded. This is my new feature. I'm like, oh, wow, Biet, like you could really be less long-winded. And the truth is that as soon as you see what your liabilities are, you're already on the way to letting God take them from you or letting source remove those. If you're not religious, I'm not religious, but I know God can like give everyone the heebie-jeebies. I like the word God. I'm controversial like that, but like it just starts being taken. And the question is, are you willing to live without those liabilities? Are you willing to live without things that make you comfortable now? And I think a lot of us would like to keep our long-windedness and our weird 1 a.m. sauna and our this and our that. But as soon as we start asking, well, what's the difference between me and the lucky person? Universe will start saying, well, just like it told me 16 years ago, well, lucky people don't do heroin, cocaine every day. And 16 years ago, I had to come to terms with that. But today, I'm not a fucking heroin addict, and many of your listeners are not in this down and out place. I called my group rock bottom, not because the people who are joining my group are literally living under a bridge doing crystal meth, but because rock bottom happens here. It happens at 80%. That's the real rock bottom.
As someone who was in 12-step for a long time in sobriety,
Yeah,
I'm hearing a reimagining of emotional sobriety.
yes.
A reimagining of, that list of liabilities. I'm hearing drop the rock.
Yes.
Can you say more about that? Because I feel like, I've got, I've referred a lot of my patients over the years to 12-step programs, and I feel like my take rate is so low.
In terms of they don't do
go.
it? Huh.
Or they go to a couple of meetings, they don't feel like it speaks to them.
Yes.
They drop out, they continue to suffer, they continue at their 80%,
Yep.
knowing that there's so much more that they could be doing or feeling or being. And I feel like 12-step and sobriety has a branding issue.
Yes.
So can you say more about that?
This is beautiful because that is exactly what I'm creating. I'm creating a space for people who aren't willing to identify with the kind of degradation and self-loathing that is common in the branding of what you're describing, right? So yeah, if I'm going to send someone who's thriving and a homeowner and a business owner and has a gorgeous family and all the things to like a Debtors Anonymous meeting, they're not going to find their tribe there. They're going to go and be like, what is this? Like, this doesn't match my, my profile. I don't fit in here. So, but surrender is the key. And most people who are thriving at life and who get life think they don't have to surrender.
Mm. There's a misconception about surrender, right? I mean, I think I used to have a misconception. I thought it was sort of this passive, wave the white flag, give up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what it is at all.
No.
What is it?
It's a real interesting thing, isn't it? Because surrender it's mixed with this idea of powerlessness, right? To admit that I am powerless. But it's ironic because the things that turn me on the most in life are actually inspirational talks about the power that we have, the agency that we have. So I couldn't understand. I was like, wait a minute, why am I so into this like Rhonda Byrne law of attraction stuff if that kind of goes 100% against the whole I must surrender. It's God that runs everything. So if I'm meant to get cancer tomorrow, whoops, I guess I'll just get it, right? And to me, it's the marriage of these two ideas where the truth hits. I'm not a victim. I don't have to keep showing up in a basement somewhere and keep talking about what a piece of crap I am. I get to wake up and speak with a kind of confidence that I've actually only heard people speak from when they're in the most tranquil humility that can exist on earth. And also, I found that that's actually rare in Caucasians.
Yes.
It's really rare. It's more accepted in the African-American community. You see someone like Oprah, you see someone like Maya Angelou, James Baldwin. Those are people who really walk with humility and confidence at the same time. But in the white world, that's not allowed. You got to either be humble or you got to be confident, right? Like you see these business types, they're confident, but where's the humility? And you see these humble types, right? All the spiritual leaders that came before me, they're humble, but where's the confidence? It's this, I like both. I want to see like the chutzpah of like the chick from Working Girl. Remember that movie, Working Girl?
Of course.
I want to see that kind of like scrappy, like I come from Staten Island and look, I made it out. Look at my lunchbox and yeah, I'm dating Harrison Ford. That's what I'm talking about. But I want to also see this whole Yoda thing. I don't know how it happened. I just woke up and manifested a skyscraper. But it's both, right? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sitting with the racial differences that you're speaking to. And I wonder also if there's it feels like what I know about Asian cultures, that I see more of that combination of humility and confidence. Or there's a long tradition of honoring both. I need to sit with it longer. I'm not sure. But I like what you're saying about the African-American community. That feels right to me. And is part of the problem that we don't have the models for it as Caucasians?
Well, yeah, we don't, because we don't have church. Not really, right? I'm not into religion. That's not the thing that turns me on. What turns me on is freedom. But I need God reliance. So how do you find God reliance and the artistic, creative space to do that? And you could say, oh, okay, 12-step offers that, except it doesn't offer the confidence piece. Because the confidence piece has to come from this other modality. The stuff that I've learned and studied to become confident didn't come from anything that is 12-step, right? Because 12-step is all about humility. It really is. That's like the core of 12-step.
That's true. So where does your confidence come from? How did you architect that?
I mean, it's come from studying transformational work. I think it hails back to the work of Werner Erhard, who created EST. And then he obviously got all that work from Eastern religions. But the way that he put it together and the way that he fused it with business, I think is very specific to capitalism. And the question is, if you came to a state of awakening in the United States of America or in the Western world, wherever that may be, the UK, wherever you're listening to this from, right? Then capitalism is a feature of your relationship with a higher power. You can pretend that it's not. You could be like, oh, well, that's not me. Okay, great. Well, then move to the Himalayan mountains and sit in meditation for the rest of your life. But if you actually search yourself and say, well, I do kind of want a Bentley, and I do kind of want to own a summer home, and I do kind of want X, Y, Z, and the other thing. Okay, then, well, how are you going to make that spiritual? Because you're going to have to, or you're going to be at war with yourself for the rest of your life. That doesn't sound functional, like being at war with yourself to try to accomplish your aims.
Well, definitely can't get to 100%. But you can get to 80%.
Yeah, you can.
At war with yourself.
Yes, you can.
How do you know if you're at war with yourself?
You are moody. You believe your moods. You think your moods really matter, and you take them very seriously. You're at 80% if you're still having resentments towards people and believing in resentments and not taking responsibility for the fact that you create everyone in your world and every circumstance in your world. You're at 80% if you look around your life and there's still things you want to accomplish and you haven't accomplished them yet, and you're not working every day with a state of delicious enthusiasm to accomplish those things. Which, by the way, like, I don't think at the age of 80, I'll be done, right? I'll still be accomplishing. It's the kind of enthusiasm and optimism that I wake up with today is the same I'm going to wake up with at 95. And I'm going to wake up with that every single day. That is living in 100%. As soon as you get the switch, your life is already at 100. Even if you haven't already built the $1 million company or the $1 billion business or whatever it is you're building, you're already there. As soon as you decide, I'm not going to live in this state when I read an inspirational book, when I see Forrest Gump. So for 2 hours, I'm going to be really fucking measured and like inspired. No, I'm going to be like this all day, every day, because it isn't mechanical to do so. It's actually magical to do so. And it's a miracle in a society like this where everything's telling you, be afraid, freak the fuck out, and ruin your health and be worried. And it's like, no, I'm just going to be miraculously optimistic and happy. That is weird. And that's what I teach.
There's I'm a physician, and I want to pull in what feels like the hormonal and neurobiology of what you're teaching, because it feels to me that when you're at 80%, there's a way that you're at the effect of a culture that is trying to dysregulate you. And you're letting it. You're allowing it to happen.
Yep.
You're letting your cortisol be dependent on external factors. You're letting your brain chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, kind of bounce around depending on your external circumstances. And you're talking about a way of shifting to your own internal world and setting the standard, not based on the external conditions, but choosing the kind of biology you want.
Yes.
Creating the biology, which is maybe what you mean by 100% responsibility.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better. It's perfect what you're describing. And I would say that up until I had this awakening, I was at 80% of that. So that means I had this agency some of the time. Maybe it was even like 60-40. It was quite a bit of positive optimism. And then there was this 40% of me that I was still trying to keep hidden from everybody. And ironically, coming out of the closet about the things I was keeping secret and the things I was so ashamed of allowed me to thrive 100% of the time, because those things they can't be secret. Everybody knows also, by the way, anyone who's listening, everyone knows what you're lying about and they know what you're hiding. It's written all over you. They can smell it like a fart. Like everyone knows what you want. Everyone knows what you care about. Everyone knows what you love most. It's written all over you. And that's why the people that like you. Mm-hmm. And that's why the people that don't. Because we're all part of the same organism.
Say more about that. I'm curious about your awakening. Was that a moment? Was it 6 months? Like, tell us about that. How did it unfold?
It was a new rock bottom inside of my delicious, very successful life where things started to go bad, as they will right before you have an awakening, right? Things start to fall out from under you. And as these things started to go bad, now a lot of things were in place, right? So many of the domains of my life were in perfect condition, but certain domains started to collapse.
Like what?
For me, it was finance. It was like the finances weren't looking like the way that they had been. And they had been looking very opulent. But while they were opulent, and again, I'm happy to say numbers. I was earning $1 million a year. And by the way, as somebody who was on food stamps and Medicaid 11 years ago, right? So $1 million, I thought like, this was great, right? But there was a voice in me that was like, this isn't really enough money. You're supposed to be doing bigger things. That's what the voice was saying. And I was like, shh, this is good. Don't fuck this up. This is good. We're making $1 million a year. Like, shh. And the voice was like, I'm not satisfied. I don't like this. And so, of course, as it will with the universe, if you keep having that war, what does it do? Okay, we'll take 400,000 out of that million. How you feeling now?
Mm-hmm. Tested.
Oops. And then of course I'm like, what did I do? I should have been grateful. Right? And the voice is like, no, bitch, you've got some work to do. You're not doing what you came here to do, what I told you to do. Mm. And so I just got on my knees as I'd learned how to do. And I said, I'm going to do the spiritual work to figure this out. And I did the spiritual work, and I did the spiritual work, and I did the spiritual work, and I did the spiritual work. This is about 6 months. But, doing spiritual work while you're trying to solve your financial situation is also, and like run a family and be an entrepreneur and, it's a lot. So it was an interesting time. But, me, I'm optimistic. I'm like, so I was 50-50. 50% of the time I was like this, what you see here. And the other 50, I was like, what's happening, right? And so I did the work and did the work. And finally I saw that I was hiding something from myself. And it was hidden in plain sight. And that the truth is that I wasn't actually being honest about the totality of my mission, that I still had shame. I had shame around money. I had shame around business. I had shame around being a business. So I was like forming collaborations and pretending like I was still like some destitute artist who just needed help. And I was forging relationships with people who were like on death's door, or like, I'd be like, oh, you look like you're about to enter into a rehab. Let's start a business together. Like I would make decisions that were based in me trying to sabotage rather than me trying to actually build something that was functioning. And so once I saw all these truths, I rearranged them. And then I implemented all the work that I had already mastered all these years. And then something interesting happened. I had this moment where for us, like a collection of reasons, I couldn't reach anyone anymore. There wasn't like a coach or a therapist or a person who was going to help me anymore. For a lot of reasons, things just fell apart. And I prayed and I said, what if, Biet, what if you need to just take this next leg by yourself? Maybe there's no one who can support you here. You need to do this by yourself. And I went it alone. And this was like a 2-month process. And it felt, honestly, like I felt like I was in a state of enlightenment for 2 months straight. Nonstop, because I had this reckoning where I was like, what if I'm responsible for how I feel? And I'm not going to let Like, I used to always do this thing where I was like upset and I would like text out and call people and be like, I'm upset. Let's like work this out. And I had to ask myself, what if this isn't real? What if you have the tools? Let's implement them in a different way. And I kept implementing them in different ways until I created this strategy where I was like, I can share this with the world. This is something that I can really share.
This again feels like next level sobriety. And I'm using sobriety here. I mean, it's not quite the right word.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the right word is. But if I think of, how do you define sobriety?
I mean, for who? Like
anyone. How do you define it for yourself?
I have always thought of it as like this thing, this like opulent, thriving, real sobriety, right? It's like making sober choices. But, you know, of course, not drinking and not doing heroin is the first step too. But then there's so many choices, right? It's like, am I going to eat sugar? Am I going to be fat? Like, what am I, you know, what kind of sober are we going for here? You know, there's lots of sober people who are like hobbling around with canes and giving themselves diabetes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's physical sobriety around honesty and responsibility. I'm just reflecting some of your words back to you. And in 12-step, you know, one of the things I learned was if you're feeling dysregulated, you pick up the phone and you call 3 people. Yeah. And you get your emotions up and out and don't let them sort of stew inside your system.
Yeah. Good.
And that's incredibly helpful. Yeah. It was very helpful when I was 40. Yeah. And I didn't know how to do that. It wasn't modeled for me when I was a kid. But you're talking about something else, which is part of this awakening was the realization that you had to do it alone. The realization that you were 100% responsible for your experience. And that to me is next level from what I learned in sobriety. Am I making sense?
Yes.
That it's not about, so yes, the connection with others and the fellowship is incredibly important.
Very important.
But there's also ultimately this internal world that I need to be working with. And I need to be radically honest about what I'm telling myself and whether I am getting a little victim-y here or there. Right. And not taking 100% responsibility. So I hear you talking about that, which feels, again, like, okay, if we've got this foundation of all of these great tools that we learned in sobriety, this again feels next level to me.
It really is, because it is the distinction is, isn't there something in those phone calls where it's a new addiction to insight? My insights, your insights. Like, I call you up, I'm insightful, you're insightful, great. But are we going to apply these insights towards this next 20% of our life? If these insights cannot help the world, if they don't create electricity, if they don't create a system that supports reality in its transformation, how useful is it that I felt that way? Why did God give me that difficulty and have me connect with this other human so that we could both masturbate on how insightful we are? Was that really God's whole vision? No, God's vision was that we go create something and make something with our life that is really useful for a lot of people. And we live in a matrix. So the voice is going to tell you, well, there's a lot of people trying to do that. So what makes you think you're going to be the one who comes out? Well, guess what? Millions of people could come out with millions and millions and millions of dollars and impact and purpose and joy and a beautiful family and a beautiful life and a beautiful body. Guess what? It's not limited to just a couple people. Right?
Totally. So I want to, as we start to wrap up this time together, I'm curious, you know, we started with this experience that you had with your mother dying when you were 6.
Yeah.
And how there was a transmutation that's happened for you, that you've experienced as you discovered that you were living at 80%, and you found a way to create that 100% for yourself, and then how to pay that forward, how to teach it to others.
Yes.
Can you walk us through what that looks like in your life right now, and maybe how people could also access that? Like, how do they do that?
How do you mean?
How do they, well, maybe tell us a bit about Rock Bottom and about your community, and how they could, what sort of things could they learn in that online experience with you?
Yeah. I mean, I've picked up a lot of tools along the way to become the woman that I am today. And the way that I have put those tools together is very, very different from the way they've ever been put together before. So there are other things that people can do. You can go to, like you said, 12-step, right? But you're not going to feel like you fit in, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and you're probably not going to like it, right?
So for our listener or viewer, Biet, they can relate to this experience you had with your mother, this profound pain that you experienced. And as you said, you felt broken. You also had this turning point where you realized that you were living at 80%.
Yes.
And then you changed your conception and your relationship to higher power in a way that allowed you to understand and create a way to shift from 80% to 100%.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could talk us through some aspects of this. First, what it's like for you now to live at 100%. You've got 2 children, got an amazing husband that I just met.
So amazing.
So amazing. You've got a really great life. And I think it's helpful for people to hear what that's like, you know, when you wake up in the morning. And also, I want for them to understand what might be available for them if they were to join your online community.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
It's so fun because did we already talk about this idea of the addiction to insight, right? Like this idea that you're going to be like insightful, right?
Yeah, I felt like you totally nailed me to the wall talking about the addiction to insight, because I am totally addicted to that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. We get to still have the fun. Like, I'm not saying we can't be insightful ever again. But to
see it and to see how it's driving you.
Yes.
That's critical.
It's critical because then you have to, this is the piece that we do in Rock Bottom and what we revisit as a group is, are you actually taking all these insights? And insights are implants. They're like the source or God or quantum, whatever you call that thing, implanting in you seeds. Are you planting these seeds? Are you harvesting these seeds? Are you watering them daily with confidence that they will grow? And also, I help people in Rock Bottom to build their life backwards. This idea that it's like, well, I'll build a $1 billion company, or I've decided I have a private client who's committed to having a $40 million net worth. And when she first started working with me, she was like, but what if God doesn't want that for me? That's what she would ask. What if God doesn't want a $40 million net worth? And I was just like, we can't be doing this. Like, how much time are we going to waste on what if God wants me to die of cancer tomorrow? We just don't have that kind of time. We don't have that kind of privilege. If God really wanted that, you'll find out. I promise. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What we can do, what we have control over is waking up and saying, I know that I get a $40 million net worth. I know, and I'm going to write my life backwards based on what I already know. And if you think about life, when I first got sober, that first year, I was in that, what they call a pink cloud. I was like, oh my God, God saved my life from the like hallows of hell so that I could be great. And I would see people speak who were New York Times bestselling authors. And I thought, that's going to be me. And I wept. That's going to be me, I said. And then as time went on, that second year, that third year came, it's like, what if it's not going to be me? Why did God do this? Why did God save me? For what? So that to torture me around like a little mouse with a cat paw? And that's how I felt. And what I've created in Rock Bottom is a space where we don't do that anymore. We do pink cloud non-negotiably forever. If you're not feeling the way you felt the first year you got sober for the rest of your life, you're not doing it right. And you are the problem. And that's an agency that you're not taught in 12-step recovery.
That's right.
And also the humility and the surrender piece and powerlessness piece is not taught in transformational workshops like Landmark or Tony Robbins. So I have put these things together along with the 40 plus years of modalities that I have mastered, and some of which I have literally created from thin air. And you put all that together and you get my formula. And this formula allows you to be so humble and like Yoda, which I know many of us really like, and also like, wearing a Celine bag and summering in the Hamptons. Sorry, apologies, right? And so, okay, let's talk about that, right? This 20%, it has to do with sales.
What do you mean?
Well, we've just been taught that we're not allowed to sell. We're not allowed to sales, marketing. They're actually evil. They're bad. And I'm not alone in that.
Sacred? What if they're sacred?
What do you mean?
What if they're... I feel this about medicine.
Yeah.
I feel like the work I do as a physician is marketing and sales.
Yes.
I'm trying to convince people that supporting their mitochondria, having their hormones in balance, waking up in the morning feeling fully restored, putting their feet on the floor and feeling like, oh my gosh, I get this other opportunity to live my life to the fullest. Like, I feel like that's my job. I've got this sacred responsibility to convince others that they want to change their lives in this way. So it feels like there's a resonance with what you're describing, that sales and marketing is not evil.
Right.
It depends on your purpose.
Right.
And it depends on like really identifying the wholeness and the greater good in someone and supporting that, which it sounds like you're doing in Rock Bottom.
Yes. But it's also about taking the shame away, because we've seen some very bad people get their hands on sales and marketing. We just talked about this. You said, you seem like someone who really cares about the font on the cover of your book. And I said, yes, it's the same font that Hitler used. And why is it that evil people are so good at marketing and fashion? Well, guess what? You can't sell evil without selling evil, right? You're just a lonely evil person somewhere that no one knows about. If you want to be Hitler, you're going to have to use sales and marketing to get that evil out there. And it's the same thing. And so we associate it with bad people. We're like, I don't want to be like that guy. I don't want to be like, and we can name a lot of bad guys, mostly guys for some reason, but there's bad girls too, or, like sleazy. We associate it with sleaze and like being manipulated or manipulating. And I often see like bald car salesmen when I think about sales, or that scene in American Beauty where she's like sponge cleaning the windows and saying, I will sell this house today. I will sell this house today. Like, she's not the one having an enlightenment experience. Kevin Spacey is in that movie. I'd love to see a movie where that woman comes into a state of enlightenment and sells the house. Like, it's like, oh my God, this is not how it works, girl.
Any final thoughts you want to share to wrap up this podcast together?
My final thought is, if we don't have each other and we don't have a higher power and we don't have a formula for success, we will fail. And it's not because we're not good people. And it's not because we're not trying. It's because naturally we're heading towards a mediocre life and a mediocre ending. And if you don't actually wake up and try with all your might to be great and to live a life of greatness, you will definitely not live a life of greatness. It's not going to accidentally be sprinkled on you by some savior or some prince. No one is coming to buy you all the things and set you up. Even all my wealthiest clients who've literally been given everything have no idea how to find greatness. Greatness is something that is inside you. And just like Michelangelo said, David carved himself out of there. He was already in there. If you do not have the correct chisel and you do not have the right tools, you ain't getting no David. This life is going to be a blot of stone that you're going to look at begrudgingly and be like, what the actual fuck is this? How do I get in there? I just want to see this guy. So, come, do some shit, join me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Biet.
Thank you.
So good to be with you.
You too.